Hello everyone, it's Bill from CambodiYeah, and this is another video by request, and it's all about safety and scams in Cambodia. And there is a lot of conflicting information out there, not to mention exaggeration, misinformation, and frankly a whole lot of bullshit. So I aim to clear the air in this video about how safe Cambodia really is. So first thing, there are so many horror stories out there, and also straight up misinformation on purpose that people are creating out there to make Cambodia seem way more dangerous than it actually is. And it does affect people, because I saw comments on Reddit. This one lady had heard all these horror stories. She goes to Siem Reap and says she's never felt more unsafe anywhere, and she ended up leaving early. And I'm like, well, what actually happened? Well, nothing actually happened, but they'd heard all these horror stories, and they let that become the filter through which they saw Cambodia. And that's a shame, because it ruined what could have otherwise been an amazing experience for them. If they would have looked at Cambodia as it is, rather than through the filter of all those horror stories, they could have had an amazing time. And it's just sad that that kind of thing happens to people. And it sucks. So here's what I will say. I'm 54 years old, and I've spent all of my life in America, with the exception of those couple of months about 5 years ago when I lived in Cambodia before. I have lived in many different states and lots of different cities, and I have never felt safer anywhere in America than I did in Cambodia. There are many women expats living in Cambodia who they walk around by themselves and they're not worried about it. Of course, use common sense, but so many people have never felt safer anywhere else. And I just got to tell you, Cambodia is quite safe. People worry about kidnappings, violent crime, that kind of thing. And let me say this, there is a fair amount of domestic violence, and some violent crime, sexual crime, unfortunately, between Khmer people. But foreigners are very rarely targeted for these kinds of things. And that's because foreigners are basically the bread and butter. Tourism is the biggest economy in Cambodia. The authorities come down really hard on anyone who's messing with foreigners. So it's super unlikely that anything may happen to you. Now, there is no place on earth where nothing bad ever happens to foreigners. That kind of place just doesn't exist. But Cambodia is about as close as it gets. It truly is safe in Cambodia. Of course, there are some dangers, and so let me go through a few of them. The main one is traffic. Traffic is really erratic, and if you haven't traveled in Southeast Asia anywhere before, it's going to seem like pure chaos to you, but there is a method to the madness. So at least in Siem Reap, there's not a lot of stoplights and everything like that. And so if you need to cross the street, if you're waiting for everyone to stop and wave you along, that's not going to happen. However, it can feel like the first time you go to cross the street, it can feel like you're the first person ever to do it there. But believe me, the people driving all the different vehicles on the road, they deal with people crossing the street all day, every day. They're used to it. And here's how you do it. There's a bit of an art to it. You just kind of take a look at the traffic, looking both ways, and you pick a moment and you start to go at a medium pace. you start to go, not too slow, not too quick, but steady across the road, and don't stop. Don't get all stop and start and freaked out or anything, because then you're going to throw traffic off. What the people driving the various vehicles need are for you to go steady and forward and not, trip out. And just, keep your eyes on the traffic. So you may need to go a bit side to side, but just keep going forward and commit. and you'll get to the other side. And after a couple of days of doing that, it's going to feel natural. You're not even going to really be thinking about it much. It's going to be something you're just used to and you do. If you decide to buy a moto or any other vehicle, or ride a bicycle or whatever, just be real super careful, because traffic really can be erratic, and there's always going to be some speeding guy. And whatever you do, try not to drive at night, because that's when all the drunks come out. And there is sadly a high amount of drunk driving incidents in Cambodia. They are kind of trying to crack down on it more and more, but it's still rampant. So, just be real careful at night. Definitely don't go driving way out of the city at night. That's a bad idea. Basically, the rule of thumb when you're dealing with traffic in any way is just keep your head on a swivel. Be smart. And that'll go a long way towards preventing any problems for you. So the next thing is completely preventable, but it happens to be one of the top causes of death in Cambodia for foreigners, and that's overdosing. Because it doesn't require a prescription to get any kind of meds or pills or whatever, people overdose because they party too hard, or maybe they're doing it on purpose. But it's a sad and unfortunate reality that a fair amount of foreigners do that. And so if you're an addict, maybe reconsider Cambodia and not go, because it's just going to be too easy to get access to the things that can kill you. And if you're an alcoholic, well, let me say that nothing is more advertised in Cambodia than beer. You will see billboards and signs and everything for Cambodia beer and Gansberg and these various different beers, and they're everywhere. And so, alcohol is a huge thing in Cambodia. And if you're an alcoholic, it can be extremely difficult to avoid that. It's just such a part of Cambodian culture, for people to get together and have a few beers. So just be very wary of that. These are preventable issues, but are unfortunately common. Theft. Now, while that's not really a mortal danger, it can be pretty common in Phnom Penh. I've never really had to worry about it in Siem Reap. Mainly it's bag snatching and pickpocketing. And so really, do not wear something with just a strap on one shoulder like this. The best thing to do is carry your valuables in a crossbody bag that's really hard to remove from you and steal from you. And it's the safest way. It's also hard to pickpocket you when you got all your money and your valuables in that thing. And don't carry your passport around. I understand when you first land, you're going to have it. But in general, you don't need to bring it around with you. It's extremely unlikely you're going to be asked for it. Don't leave the bag sitting anywhere unattended. Let's say you go to a coffee shop. If you need to go up to the counter to get your coffee, bring that bag with you. Don't just leave it at the table. Practice common sense. Always keep an eye on your stuff. Most dangers in Cambodia are completely preventable. And if you're smart and use basic common sense, you won't be a victim. So the next thing is medical issues and disease and things like that. Now, you may have heard that the medical facilities in Cambodia can be rather spotty, but they're not quite as abysmal as a lot of people make it sound. There are some who make it sound like you catch a common cold, you need to fly to Bangkok to get taken care of. It's not that bad. There are some clinics and some doctors and some hospitals that are quite worthwhile for the vast majority of things, actually. It's just the real serious stuff. I mean, if you break your neck or you get cancer or you just have something that's, requires a specialist and special equipment and things like that, then yeah, I would suggest going to Cambodia for that. But for most general things, you really don't need to. And if you take a look at my previous video for medical things, then I have listed a few places you can go, at least in Siem Reap, where you can be taken care of and you'll be fine. I'll put a link to that video in the description. And so look at the description of that video and you'll see a few places that you can go for medical treatment and preventative treatment. So the next thing is dogs. There's a lot of wild stray dogs that can get quite aggressive. And even if you see one laying on the sidewalk or whatever, just minding its own business, don't go to try to pet it. I know I love dogs too. I want to pet them all, but they're unpredictable. So if they come up to you and want to be pet, that's one thing. Otherwise, I would suggest leaving them alone. Now, landmines. You may have heard there's a good amount of unexploded ordnance, otherwise known as UXO, laying around out in the wilderness in Cambodia, and that is true. If you're in a city or within several miles of a city, you're not going to have to worry at all. Those areas have been cleared. But don't go way out of the wilderness and just hike around somewhere that you haven't heard has definitely been cleared. There are efforts to clear those. They're really trying to get that done quickly, but there are still areas out in the wilderness where those things exist. And unfortunately, it's still killing people every year. So that's something just to be careful of. As far as like bandits or anything like that, I would not suggest going way away far from the cities at night. During the day, you want to go around and check out all the beautiful places out there, that's no problem. You'll be fine. But if you're like way far away from any of the cities, then don't be out there at night, because some activity can happen there. But anywhere where tourists are gathered, anywhere near the cities, you're not going to have to worry about it in those areas at all. By now, it should be pretty clear that as far as dangers in Cambodia go, as long as you practice some basic common sense, you're going to be fine. So now I want to talk to you about scams. And there's some contentious stuff about this. I'm not going to get in any debates with anyone about this stuff. I'm just going to share my experiences and what I have encountered with talking to other expats, and give you a clearer picture on scams in Cambodia, most of which seem to be centered in Phnom Penh. I really haven't encountered much scammy stuff at all in Siem Reap. First off, higher prices for foreigners isn't a scam. That's just how it is, because Khmer people make an average of $200 a month. Of course, they're going to take care of their own people. And it's not the only place on earth where there are higher prices for non-locals than for locals. I once visited Vail, Colorado, and the Wendy's had a sign for, prices for locals and non-locals. This was years ago, but nonetheless, it's something that happens in many places all over the earth. Cambodia is not trying to just scam you and take everything from you. There's a lot of poverty, unfortunately, and the local people need to be able to afford stuff. And you spending 50 cents or $1 more on a bowl of noodles isn't going to kill you. If you really want to avoid overpaying, go to street food stalls, go to wet markets. Don't go to supermarkets and regular restaurants where the prices are jacked up. And by all means, stay the fuck off of Pub Street. Or go there because it's a novel thing, but know that the prices are much higher there than elsewhere. It's just going to be like that for really touristy areas. Tuk-tuks, if you're taking a regular tuk-tuk rather than using the app's Grab or Pass app, they're generally going to be more scammy and charge you more. And if you choose to use them, just agree on a price before you hop in, and you should be fine. If they try to ask for something else, say, no, we agreed upon this price, here's your money, and walk away. If you use Grab or Pass app, which function basically like Uber and Lyft, then you have the price showing right there in the app. And I will generally even kick them another 1,000 Riel, just because the apps take a chunk of the money. So, I tip them a little to help them out. Tipping's not generally expected in Cambodia, but I like to help out a little bit here and there. It's, 25 cents is 1,000 Riel. One thing that I have fallen victim to is damaged USD being given out as change. Now, for Lower amounts, generally you're going to now be given Riel because they're kind of trying to phase out USD as much as they can. And so for lower amounts, it's best to use Riel. USD, if it's damaged and marked up and all of that, it's not going to be accepted. And I once received, I gave a 20. I received a $10 bill that was stuffed in between the other bills for the change, and it was literally ripped in half and scotch taped back together, and it was useless. There was nothing I could do with that. So to avoid this, don't leave a counter without looking at all of the bills if they're USD. So to avoid this, when you get change, if it's in USD, don't walk away from that counter. Don't even turn around without checking it all first. Just be smart. Moto rentals. Now, there are a fair amount of scams with this. Basically, just go to a reputable place. Dyna Scooter in Siem Reap is pretty good, quite legit. But there are some places that may try to scam you and accuse you of damaging the moto, or you rent the moto and they'll go out and steal it and accuse you of letting it get stolen and then charge you for it. So, go to reputable places. If you just don't know, then be sure to take video or pictures of the entire moto before and after your time renting it, just to make extra sure, and that'll help prevent any problems with that. There are a few fake travel agents and visa offices. Again, there's a lot of reputable ones you should go to, so just keep an eye out. Look at my video for visas, which I just did last week, and I've listed several reputable places in the description of that one. One thing that is sad and unfortunate is a lot of kids may come up begging. Don't give them anything because chances are they're not getting that money anyway. It's going to an adult who is having them go out to beg from you. So it may break your heart, but don't give to them because that's a scam. Something that goes hand in hand with this, I haven't run into this, but I've heard that it exists, is a milk scam where some mother with a baby or some young child will come up to you and ask you to buy milk for them, and they look so sad, and they'll walk you to a store where you buy the milk at highly inflated prices. And then you feel like you've done a good deed. And when you've walked away, they go and bring the milk back to the store and rinse and repeat. And it just keeps happening. Gambling. Just don't take part in it in Cambodia. There are some scams where somebody will befriend you and invite you for dinner, and then you go there and say, hey, how about a friendly game of poker or whatever? And it's rigged, and they will take you for as much as they can. So if you see gambling happening, just walk away, pretty much. Just don't take part. Another thing that hasn't happened to me or anyone I've talked to, but I have heard about, is fake police. Basically, they ask for your passport to verify it, and then they ask for money to give it back to you. Don't carry your passport around. Take a photocopy of it for any place that needs your passport info, and you can carry that copy around, but don't ever hand your actual passport out to people. There's another one. This comes from other foreigners, and it's kind of a sad thing, but there are some people who will become your friend and hang out for a couple days, and you think they're your best friend, and then suddenly they say all their stuff got stolen and they need some money, and please help them out. They promise as soon as they get to the embassy they'll pay you right back, and then they fuck off and you're out of all that money. If you enjoy karaoke, do not go to KTV places because most of them are fronts for brothels and stuff like that. There are some places that do Western-style karaoke, which can be pretty fun. So just ask around about various bars that have that, and you'll be fine. But I'd avoid the KTV places. Even if you choose not to take part in the brothel side of things, they'll probably try to charge you for a lot of extra food and drink, and just stay out of them. They're fine for locals, but foreigners are going to get taken for a ride. And the last one is fake monks who come up to you and they want to sell you little things like bracelets and trinkets and things like this. Here's how you know if it's a scam. If it's someone dressed as a monk looking to sell you things, it's a scam, because no monk is going to do that, ever. Monks don't try to sell foreigners things. So once again, you should be able to see that the common theme here is, as long as you use some basic common sense and you don't do anything stupid, you're going to be generally fine. Just keep an eye on your stuff. Don't be too trusting, and allow yourself to enjoy the lovely country of Cambodia. So long story short, just don't buy into the fear-mongering and the misinformation that's out there. So I hope this has cleared the air for many of you so you can get an understanding of what really is and is not dangerous in Cambodia. If you feel this helps you, please like and subscribe. I'd greatly appreciate it. And I will see you next week in another video. Take care. Bye-bye.